What's up, guys? Justin Garcia, aka Master Chim here, and I'm here with another lesson for the VioPrep 101 seminar that I'm going to be hosting in New York City in this very room and maybe outside also on October 7th. I'll put the link down below. You guys can check it out. But today we're going to be talking about ranges of violence. Now, I have a lot of material, right, that I've studied and developed over the years, and today I wanted to give a very elementary level of information and understanding regarding how I deal with ranges in tools for violence, right? So, okay, I have with me a stick, and I'll be showing you some differences in how we use tools, you know, using the stick for contrast. But I want to go over the concept of range by numbers. Now, I started doing this, you know, probably 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, when I was trying to talk to my fighters, the differences in ranges and how different ranges have different tools. And the number system is as follows. Let me start with that. So we say a zero range, and just think of an MMA filter for now. It gets a lot broader than that. But for now, the clinch is going to be what we call our zero range. Zero range more generally means, by my terminology, on target. Okay, so the target is actually being affected. And from zero range in an MMA situation, we obviously know there's a whole slew of techniques that could be used from there to follow mission of being victorious in a fight. Now, the one range is where we say the end, or the beginning, I guess you could say, of the reactionary gap of the tool exists. Meaning, if I am a certain distance away from my target, and I'm going to use this pad as an example, obviously, I know that I could still effectively strike this target from this distance. The fact that I could touch it from this distance means I am at the one range. Now, anything beyond the one range means that I am out of reach, because we're going to be talking about range first. We're not going to work reactionary gap into this more than I have to, and I would tell you, if you have not seen the reactionary gap power program on thewarriorproject.com, you absolutely should. But in reactionary gap, we talk about how we could affect somebody before they can react effectively. So for range, we're starting at the zero range, which is our target. The one range is where I could begin to be in range to affect the tool that I'm using. If I were to use a stick, whereas one for my punch, right, my cross would be at this distance, for the stick, the one would probably begin over here, right? So I'm at a one range for a stick, but it is beyond the one range for my punch. One range for my punch is less than one range for my stick. Can I still use my stick? Sure. I can still use my stick with different applications of it, but I am now in that range where I could use it. So now, the two things that we're going to track, both offensively and counter-offensively, are fixed tools and dynamic tools. Now, in a confrontation, in a street situation specifically, specific to what the VioPrep is going to be preparing you for, we have certain things that we need to track, whose ranges we are in, if we're talking about counter violence, and we're also talking about what if we're the ones that are initiating the violence, we're the ones that are actually feeding, and we're using our tools. Now, in this instance, right, we'll say the bag is a target, right? So zero for, let's use the stick for an example. Zero for the stick is the target. One is right at the end of that range. We'll say with just a one angled strike, right? So this is my one range. There's a certain point where, so long as I am fixed where I am, right, or I am stationary, and my target is stationary, the one range begins here. And at this range, this tool has a fixed potential for application. It's going to get deep for a second, just bear with me. But if by chance either I move or this target happens to move, Paul, let me use you for this. All right, so I'm going to use, this is Paul, one of my fighters. He's appeared in the videos before. Right now, I'm at a one range with my stick to where I can effectively strike with my stick. If he were to remove himself, I am now beyond the one range. So he has handled the fixed potential of this tool, right? He has countered the fixed potential of this tool. But obviously we know in a realistic situation, when you press the play button of life, I have the potential to reacquire my one range with this tool. So now the potential and the reach and range of this fixed tool didn't change. What changed was the dynamic potential of my ability to change the distance between us. Okay, thanks, Paul. So what is the application of this? The application of this, and I'll be going over this a lot more in depth, with a lot more ways to look at this in life and realistic situations. But for now, the takeaway that I want you to have is that we can not only track the fixed tools on either our side or the other side, right? We have to track also the dynamic potential, the dynamic tools of a situation. Now, recently there have been a lot of rallies going on in the country, and there's been a lot of violence happening at those rallies. Well, think of it this way. If I am standing in a crowd of people who are potential threats, I have a potential of violence to be directed toward me that is fixed. Now, I can handle or counter the fixed potential of that violence, meaning the things that this crowd could do to me because of where I am. I can counter that by removing myself from the situation and maybe going 50 yards up the road. But now that doesn't mean that because I've created that distance, that if that crowd were to actually move and come into proximity of me again, that the potential wouldn't be reestablished. Okay? So what winds up happening is a lot of people will not track the dynamic potential of the tools of violence. And they'll wind up in a situation where another force, an opposing force, a threat, people who are meaning to do you harm, wind up setting the scenario such that they cannot get beyond that one range for the threat that they've established, right? So there's a story about the frog and a boiling pot of water. If you've never heard it, the saying is, and I've never actually tested this, right? But I will say it's commonly used to explain these types of situations. If you were to take a boiling pot of water and you take a frog and you throw the frog into the boiling pot of water, the frog jumps out. Yet, if you put a frog into a pot of lukewarm water and you slowly raise the heat, you could actually bring the pot to a boil without the frog ever jumping out. And the reason is the frog was not able to track what was actually happening because the timeline was stretched beyond his ability to perceive it. Okay? So when we're talking about street situations and specifically violence, whether it's a crowd scenario, whether it's a one-on-one scenario, tracking the fixed tools that you have available to you and maximizing the potential for that obviously is something we want to do. We want to be able to also track the fixed tools of people that are potential threats. But at the same time, we need to track the dynamic tools that are happening maybe over a longer timeline. Okay? How is a game, how am I designing, how am I setting the table for down the road? How am I making my threats, the frog in the pot of lukewarm water, slowly bringing it to a boil? How is my potential threats or adversary doing that for me? These are the things we need to pay attention to. So when we talk about range, everybody just wants to talk about, well, I can hit you from here with my hand, I can hit you from here with my stick. But when you really talk about range in a general sense, in a universal sense, you have to bring time into the equation. And you have to understand that there are fixed relationships and there are dynamic relationships. And anybody that has a full or clear, powerful understanding of what range is and violence knows the difference between the two of them and understands the importance for both. This is Justin Garcia, aka Master Chim. Go to the link for the VioPrep 101 seminar. It is happening October 7th here in New York City at my academy. I'd love to have you. This is the inaugural seminar, combative seminar that I'm hosting publicly. I've been doing this for years for the military, for law enforcement, certainly for private clients. But I figured, why not? Now is a good time as any to take over the combatives world. And I'm looking forward to it. So check out that link. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.